Hey guys, so today I want us to talk about JavaScript loops. Specifically, we're going to talk about the for loop. So for loop, and you're going to see why do we need a for loop? Why a for loop? So let's get started. So right now I have an array of students, and this one just holds the student names. So as a refresher, an array in JavaScript is a list or a collection of some data. It can hold multiple different data types. So for instance, I could have a number here and say 10. But normally you don't want to do this. You can also have an array of objects. So an array is a list that holds a list of some data types, but it has to be a valid JavaScript data type. So how can we greet all these students? All right. So one of the way we could do is using a function. Let's use a function and say function greet student. And then this function, what it does, it receives a student. Let's call it S. And what it does, it just console.log. Let's use a template string, hey, and then the student. So this is just a utility function. We can even forget about it. We don't care about that. So our issue is how can we greet each student in this array? So how we could do that is that we could say greet student, and then you call students, and then grab the first element in the index. So I think I have autosave. Let me just format this so that you can see. So I can say students of 0, but how will I know the number of students? This might be a dynamic array. This array might be dynamic, coming from a database or coming from an API. So we don't know the length of this array. So how can we greet all these students as one? So right now we are just console logging some hey, then the student name. But this one could be maybe sending a memo, maybe Friday the school is closed, something like that. We want to send to all these students. So let me show you what we could do is that we can say let array length is equals to students dot length. All right. So the first thing we can do is that get the array length, and then using the array length, we can try to just greet these students. You can see how difficult this is. It's giving us some headaches because let's try and see. We want to greet all these students without just one by one, but let's not focus on that. Let me just show you why we need that. So what we could do is that we can do 1, 2, 3, 4. We have 4 students, and then we greet this first student, the second student, and the third student. So what I'm doing here, students of index 3, this is called array indexing. So array indexing starts at 0, 0, index 0, index 1, index 2, index 3. So when we do students of index 3, we get the exact item in that position. So this is what we could do. And if we run this code, we just run it by node.js loops.js. So then the file name. So node, the file name, then node will execute that script. Then you can see we are greeting all these students. So hey John, hey Rachel, hey Abigail, and hey Catherine. But now there's an issue. What if we have 1,000 students? So who is going to do all this? So now this is the perfect spot for loops. Let me show you the syntax for the for loops. So we still remain with this, but now instead of us having to use this one by one, we can loop over the students array. And the loop we are currently focusing on is a loop that is the normal for loop. So to create a for loop, you need to tell JavaScript that I want now to get into a for loop. You have to tell it, what do you want to do? I want to get into a for loop. So the syntax is that you start with the for keyword, and then you open parentheses, and then after parentheses, you open curly brackets. This is known as the body of the for loop. This is what will be executed. So you remember how we had the body of a function? This is the same body we have for the for loop. And also this body also have scopes. And we said scopes is where can this variable be found, or this function. Let's not focus on that. Just know that this is the body of the for loop. Inside the for loop, we need to give it 3 arguments. The first argument is a variable that will be used to track whether this for loop will run or not. So how the for loops work is that whenever the condition here or the expression here evaluates to true, this code block executed. So how can we make sure that this code block is executed? We want to execute these so long as students.length. What does student.length equals to? So student.length, let me use a comment here. So student.length is the length of the student itself, and the length disregards the indexing. So the length and the indexing are different. So we can count 1, 2, 3, 4. So the length is 4. But the indexes of these items end at 3. So we can say 0, 1, 2, 3. So indexing ends at 3. So which condition can we run such that we go through each item in the array and get all their indices? What we can do is that as long as the current index is less than the length, we don't need to go up to the length because there's no item at index 4. So we need to go up to less than. So the for loop accepts 3 arguments. So the parenthesis takes 3 arguments. So the first one is we declare a variable. So this variable is very unique because this variable will help us either loop forward or backward. So mostly you see people use I, and you don't need to use I. You can use cow, you can use dog, you can use, let me show you. Let's use a cow. So for let, but not let's, this is the index. That's why you see most people use I. You can use J, K, L, anything you want, but people mostly use I. Let's use J. So let J, we create a variable here and we assign it a value. This value is what will be determining the current value. Let me finish. The next argument is the condition. So the first argument is normally called the initializer. The next one is called the condition. So this is the condition that determines whether this for loop will continue running or it will stop. And we say that this block is executed when this for loop evaluates to true. So we say that we want to execute this for loop as long as J is less than students.length. Right? Are we together up to that point? So let me break this one into some few lines. Then let's create the last argument. Then we can say J++. So let me explain about the final argument. So I'm trying to break the lines because I can see we can't see it clearly. So the for loop takes 3 arguments: the initializer, the condition, and the incrementer or decrementer. So we said, let's create a value because the for loop doesn't know where do I start, where do I end. So in that, we create a value that will be used to track. So this is just creating a variable. We create a variable called J equals 0. This is exactly same as creating let age equals to 30. We're just creating a variable. This is a syntax. We're not creating anything new. We're just creating a variable. Then we create a condition. This condition is what will determine whether this for loop will run or not. We said J is the index because we are looping from index 0 and we are going all the way up to students.length less than, no, the current index is less than student.length. And we say that the student.length is 4 because we count without basing the indices. So it doesn't start at 0 counting. Counting, you just count one by one. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then now J is the index of these items. What you might realize is that the index starts at 0. So 0, 1, 2, 3. That means we don't have an item at index 4. So we can't use equals. So we want to loop until we get to whereby J is less than students.length. So that means we will just loop until the third item. So I hope this one is clear. But we could also use equals. J equals to student.length. But now let's subtract 1 because the indices and the counting are not equal. So there's a 1 difference. So we can do this as well. But instead of doing this, you can just use less than, because whenever it gets to 3, then it is 3. And then when it gets to 4, 4 is not less than 4. Then it exits out of the loop. Finally, we need a way now to increment or decrement j, because if we left this one out, then let j equals to 0. During the first iteration, this one will be true, and then it executes the block and then comes back. When it comes back, j is still 0, so we get into an infinite loop. So that's why we need an incrementer. We call it an incrementer, and we use this syntax which says j++, which means j is equals to j plus 1. This is exact same logic. You can see there's no error. But now the short form for this is j++. We're just incrementing j so that during the next loop, j is now a new number, and then it can be used to track. And then finally, inside the loop, we can call greet student and give it students. Let's call it students of j, because j is the indices of all these items. And then if we run this code now, we get the same result. Now, even if we have a million students, we can send out SMSs to them without having to worry. So this is the syntax of the for loop. So let's see how the for loop works one by one. Let me remove this. So what we can do now is that let's go through each iteration one by one. So we start the for loop. So let's create j. So we can say j equals to 0. Let's start. So this one is the first. This is the first for loop, the first loop. So the loop goes, whenever you see a for loop, this shows that this is a code block, or a code block that should be repeated until a certain condition is met. Otherwise, you'll get into an infinite loop. So how is this working? So it will always start at the first iteration. I have called it first. So how does this work? We go to the first iteration, j is 0. We can create j is equals to 0. And then we go to the condition and say, whenever j is less than students.length. What is students.length? We said students.length, you just count. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Student.length is 4. So is this condition true when j is 0? Yes. So what does that mean? We continue to the code block. We don't increment immediately. We continue to the code block. And then we execute the code block. That means we now execute. We execute hey. And then the first student was John. We say hey John. Then j is incremented. We go to the next iteration. J becomes incremented and j becomes 1. So the point at which the incrementation works is either after the code block runs or immediately after the condition is evaluated. I'm not quite sure about that. But j is incremented. Now j is equals to 1. We added 1 to j here by saying j++. And then we have to go back and check whether the condition still holds. So we go ahead and look at j is 1 less than 4, true. Then we execute the code block. Now we say, hey, Rachel. So we can write. Now we go to the third iteration. Now the for loop has to go until this condition is met. So the third iteration, j now is 2. And then is 2 less than students.length. Is 2 less than 4, true. Then we continue execute hey Abigail. Then we go to the fourth iteration. This is how it works under the hood. So fourth iteration, now j is 3. J is 3 less than 4, true. Continue and execute the code block. So We say, hey, no, this, the third one, 0, 1, 2, 3, hey, Catherine. Now j is incremented in the fifth iteration and j is equals to 4. But something now happens. So is j less than students.length? Student.length is 4. Is 4 less than 4? False. The for loop exits and continues executing the next code blocks. So that's exactly what happened. So whenever this condition is not met, the for loop exits automatically and continues. This code block is not executed. That's how the for loop works under the hood. This is the syntax of the for loop. And any for loop follows this syntax. The while loop follows this syntax, but they have now a different signature. But we still have other for loops. Like the array, there's a for loop that loops over the arrays. It's called a for each. Still uses this concept under the hood. So you'll find this in every programming language. And it all starts from an initializer, a condition, and a way to increment the initialized value so that this condition can maintain or not. So sometimes you might mess up here on the condition, whereby now the for loop runs indefinitely and your program might crash or something happens. So that's all about JavaScript for loops. If you liked the video, make sure you like and follow and share with your friends. Thank you.